I'm getting two key questions from you guys about the edge forward position. First one here is, who are the top keepers at the spot? Who should we be targeting? There's quite a few options that are floating around a similar average. And the second one here is, should I hold on to Sean Blaw, Kai Pearce-Paul, these types of players? Let's get right into it here. So first up, edge forward position. I've got these ranked based on consistency along here, and then upside on the upside here. So you can see there's a bit of a grouping here, but the top section has Dave Fifita on an island of his own there, 100 consistency. He is rock solid. Got Gus Crichton, Zach Hoskin sitting up top here as well with their upside. Hoskin, very limited sample size. We'll talk about that when we get to him. I believe he's ranked number 6 or number 7. Then you've got a grouping here where you've got guys like Jaden Seibold, Jacob Preston. We've got Nanai, Katoa. We've got Barnett, Lucas, Noora, these types of players. And this section here is really interesting, and I'm going to talk you through my analysis on these players as well. And then we get down to the bottom section where really the consistency is okay. They're sitting around 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 consistency, but the upside isn't big. So these guys are scoring okay, but they're not getting those big scores, which if you're a Kai Pearce-Paul owner, you're probably aware of already. So let's get into it with the first ranked here. We've got Big Dave Fifita. Look, you're paying a premium price for this guy, so $824K, very expensive. But what you're getting here is that 100 consistency score. So he is number 1 for consistency and a pretty strong upside score here too. So top 3 in terms of upside capability. Now with Dave Fifita, it's a 64 average when he plays big minutes. And the big thing to note here on the right side is you can see he goes 40 plus and 50 plus with his scores 100% of the time. So never has scored below 50 when playing big minutes this year. Pretty crazy stat there. And 60 plus is getting 67% of his scores. Now, the one limiting factor for Dave Fifita is we haven't seen an 80-plus score yet. So that caps his upside at a 74 there. But you're just getting such a rock solid between 50 and 70 points about 80% of the time, and then 70 to 80 points the rest of the time. So his score range is basically 50 to 80 this year. He is must-have football. Next up, Gussie Crichton. He's ranked number 2 in the second row spot. Consistency score is 4th place. So he has had some lower scores in there that really throw that off. But the upside score is number 1 here. And what I want to talk about with Gus Crichton is you've got 18% of his games in the back row there with big minutes above 80 points. 36% of the time. So 1 in 3 games, he goes 70 plus. Now, that's pretty different to Fifita, where it's 22% of those games. Gus Crichton's 36%. So his upside score is a lot higher than Dave Fifita's, whereas Fifita is more consistent. So 40 plus, 50 plus, Fifita is at 100%. Gus Crichton's only going 50 plus 64% of the time. 1 in 3 games, he goes under 50. So you factor that in, you're going to get some lower scores from Gus Crichton, but you're also getting these big upside games, and the average works out about the same with a 62.5. You're also getting a 100K discount on Gus Crichton. So they're 2 really good options. 86 is his buy score, whereas Fifita is 86.8. So very close, very similar. If I was picking one this week, I would go Dave Fifita, because Gus Crichton, you saw that little neck knock he caught last night at Origin. I'd be targeting Fifita. I think he's a safer option. Gus Crichton, let's see how he comes out of Origin first, and let's wait till next week. All right, next up here, and this is the beginning of Tier 2. So these options are super valid, and they're guys you can go for if you can't afford those top guys, or if you want an edge back row on your bench as well. So Jaden Seibold is the first one here. 77 is his buy score. It's a pretty big drop. So you go from 86 here with Gus Crichton to 77 with Jaden Seibold. Third place, there's quite a few guys in this section I want to talk to you about as well. But his average is only a 49 when he plays those big minutes. He's priced at a 43 with 605K. So you're getting really good value on him. But is this the time of year that you want to focus on value? It really does depend on your team's roster makeup. The consistency, look, 71 points. It's 9th place. It's okay. The upside, though, is the big thing with Jaden Seibold. So 63 upside score is quite strong. It's 4th at the position. The big thing you want to note here is that he goes 60 plus 43% of the time. Now, that's quite high because Gus Crichton's 45%, Dave Fifita's 67%, but it's still quite comparable. And you go 70 plus 21% of the time as well. And he has those 80 plus scores in him too. So with Jaden Seibold, at that price, you could be getting a guy who goes on a run for the run home, but also could be a guy who can go below 50 quite a bit of the time as well, nearly half of his games. Jeremiah Nanai is very similar, so 75.4, basically the same buy score, 4th place. And the next guy, by the way, the next couple of guys are really interesting too. But with Nanai, 4th place here, got a good consistency score, doesn't have that big upside. So again, doesn't go 80 plus basically ever. only goes 60 plus 33% of the time, but is locked in as a 40 plus scorer with 83% over 40 plus. So good consistency from Nanai. The big thing I'll point out here is that he is more try scoring reliant, and there is a bit of risk that he gets rested here and there because Finafuyaki is such a strong backup. So I'm not into the Nanai pick, but the data is quite good on him. And if you do like him, treat this as permission to go and get Nanai. Next up, 5th place, Eli Katoa, and this is a guy I've got in my team. He's averaged 53.2 when he's played the big minutes. That's 5 points of value, so he's priced at a 48. You've got the bias score of 75, basically the same as the last two. Consistency score is quite good, 75 as well. The upside score is quite low. So with Eli Katoa, you can see here he goes 40 plus most of the time, but you're not getting 70 plus very often with 13%. You're never getting 80 plus scores. So with Eli Katoa, he scores a try here and there, but doesn't seem to have that massive breakout game that some of the guys we're talking about previously do. Saying that with Eli Katoa, the role is very strong. He's unlikely to get rested unless Storm really surge out to the top, and he's got great job security. So with Eli Katoa, he's been durable this year. I like the look of him as a guy to hold on to, but I wouldn't necessarily be targeting him as a buy option because that 75 buy score, it's solid enough, but it's not exceptional. Going through Mitch Barnett, and he's number 6 here. I think criminally overrated. So 800K, right? That's the first thing you look at here. And you're getting him, and he's a very similar profile to these other guys that we're talking about who are 600 to 650K. So you're paying 200K more for a guy who's ranked number 6 in the second row spot. He's overpriced as well. So his average is 54.9. He's priced at a 58. And the consistency score is quite low. So recent scores have been fantastic, but he's 12th on this list in consistency. Upside isn't great either. You had that massive game, obviously, but in general, 13% and 6% above 70 and 80 points. They're not great profiles here, and the 50% over 50 is also not ideal either. So as much as I like Barnett, you're really backing the recent form over the data across the year. It's not a bet I'm willing to make. Zach Hoskin comes in next, number 7, and he loses a lot of points in my metrics for injury risk, for job security, and for risk of resting. So that's the thing with Zach Hoskin. He's named on the bench, but the data is very strong on him. So 3 games only, but the consistency score was an 83, which is top 3, and he had the highest upside score, equal with Gus Crichton there. And that's because in those 3 games, one of those games he went 80 plus, right? And 2 of them he went 60 plus, and all of them he went 40 plus. So these numbers are quite strong, but it is a very limited sample size. If he comes out and plays big minutes this week, maybe earns a starting spot again, or looks like he's going to get 60 to 70 minutes off the bench, at 691K, you could do a lot worse. It is very risky, though. That's why he is a 71 in his buy score. And then Noora, after Noora, by the way, we're going to go into the guys that you should hold or sell. So Blore, KPP, all those sorts of guys too. But for Noora, ranked number 8 here is 69. It's a nice number for the buy score. His consistency and upside are both quite low, so ranked about 12th in those 2 metrics. And you're seeing here, right, he only goes 40 plus 2 in 3 games, and you're not getting any 80 plus games. So you get those low games out of Noora, especially without Nico Hines, and you don't really get the huge upside games to make up for that. So again, as much as I like Noora, I like the run of buys he had. I recommended him as a buy about 3 weeks ago. I think now at 734K, he's a guy I would be steering clear of and betting against pretty confidently. And then I want to take you through Kai Pearce-Paul and Shawn Blore here as well. So for these guys, Kai Pearce-Paul first, he's ranked number 16, so we've jumped ahead quite a bit. But a 54.3 buy score. Consistency is pretty good. So top 9 in consistency, he's right in there. The upside is a 10, which is out of 100, not out of 10. So he is very, very low on upside metrics. With him, 586K, it's not a bad price. He's a lot worse than a Jaden Seibold, though. So you're only going 50 plus 57% of the time, and you are never getting 70 plus scores. Factor that in, it just means that there's no upside to this pick. And he has pretty poor job security too with Dylan Lucas on the bench. So I'd be probably steering towards selling Kai Pearce-Paul sometime soon. Not desperate to do it because he can get some scores, but he is not a keeper. Same thing with Shawn Blore, and you can make a few cases here, but for Shawn Blore, it's a 44 average when he gets the minutes. He's a bit of value, so he's priced at a 39 with 542K. It's a good price. If you're super poor, and if you don't have a lot of money in your fantasy side, then you can keep Shawn Blore as a bench guy and, try to make that work. But in general, the buy scores are 51. The consistency is quite low. The upside's quite low. And you can see this here. He's only going 50 plus in 14% of his games. That's dreadful. That's really not enough for you to warrant keeping this guy. The one Hail Mary play you could make that's really subjective is you could say, hey, you know what? Cam Munster comes back in 2 weeks. He's going to save the day, and John Bloor is going to transform. He's going to hit all these attacking stats. Tyron Wishart has been feeding him the ball. You can make that case, and you can make a subjective argument towards holding Shawn Bloor. I just don't know if I'm willing to buy into it. At the price, it's not that much of a risk, but if you have the cash to move and you can get a real gun, I think you have to move Shawn Bloor on. All right, that is our edge second row